Yamashita's gold or the Yamashita treasure is the name given to the alleged warlord stolen in Southeast Asia by Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. It was most likely hidden in caves, tunnels or underground complexes in different cities in the Philippines. The Japanese Army spent years engaging in the biggest loot in recorded history, rampaging through China, Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia and most of the other Asian countries. They systematically stripped the countries of their wealth by looting billions of dollars of gold, other precious metal, gems and artwork. This is the story of Operation Golden Lily and how Japanese army committed a grisly catalogue of atrocities and war crimes. During Japan's domination in Asia, local gangsters, Japanese Imperial Army and the highest levels of Japanese society, including Emperor Hirohito, organized a systematic loot of wealth from all the countries Japan invaded and controlled. Japanese government intended that this loot would finance Japan's war effort. For this purpose, Hirohito appointed his brother, Prince Yasuhito Chichibu, to head a secret organization named Kinnu Yuri, in English Golden Lily. One of the persons leading this organization was Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita, nicknamed the Tiger of Malaya, who conquered Malaya within 70 days from the British and was assigned in the Philippines during World War II as military governor. From him, the name Yamashita's gold originates. In the closing months of World War II, as American troops were closing in, General Yamashita directed few handpicked Japanese army men and prisoners of war to dig tunnels under the occupied islands of the Philippines. Allegedly, there are 175 tunnels made by the Japanese, each filled with billions of dollars worth of gold, jewels, priceless statues and art. All the tunnels are said to be booby-trapped with some of the most sophisticated techniques known during that time. Yamashita was so vicious that during the last phase of building the tunnels, he used the dynamites to close the openings and trap all the workers, leading them to their certain death. In the decades following the war, many treasure hunters were in the Philippines looking for Yamashita's gold, and one man finally hit the jackpot. It was a former Filipino soldier and locksmith Rogelio Roger Rox. In 1960s, Roger was given a secret map by a Japanese soldier which supposedly had secret markings of the Golden Lily treasure vaults. He locally raised some money to fund his treasure hunt. After decades of finding, on January 24, 1971, he and his small group of men discovered a cave north of Manila on a state-owned land near Baguio General Hospital. According to Roger, that hidden chamber was full of gold bars and a giant golden Buddha statue, which he estimated to weigh around 1 metric ton. With that, he claimed that the Buddha's head was removable, and inside it was at least 2 handfuls of uncut diamonds. It was allegedly a portion of the legendary Yamashita treasure. Roger took as much as he could to his home. What he didn't know, he wasn't the only person looking for this gold. News of his discovery reached the Philippines' ruthless dictator Ferdinand Marcos. He sent his soldier to Roger's house to ransack the place and steal the Buddha. Roger and his men were also arrested. Press got hold of the story and it became a national issue. The military deposited a Buddha statue at the city court. However, Roger claimed that it was not the same statue taken from him. During this whole time, he and his men were tortured to get information about the entrance to the tunnels. This prolonged mental and physical torture broke Roger, but still he resisted and did not talk. As the story goes, one of his men finally broke down and revealed everything to Marcos and his allies. Over the next few years, Marcos extracted all the gold bars and kept it for himself, which was worth tens of billions of dollars. It is said that this money helped fund the dictator and his wife's luxurious lifestyle even after being dethroned from his dictator's position. He later fled Philippines and started living in exile in Hawaii. In March 1988, Roger filed a lawsuit against former Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda Marcos, claiming that he was the real treasure hunter who found this gold. In 1993, Roger passed away before hearing court's final verdict. In 1996, the court made the judgment in favor of Roger and awarded him a staggering $41 billion in damages, one of the highest paid compensation by any court in the world. But 2 years later, in 1998, a different court reversed the judgment due to insufficient evidence. Roger's family turned over his claims to a group of American investors who then started the fight. In 2006, the United States Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, while describing the findings of the Roger vs. Marcos litigation, clearly stated the Yamashita treasure was discovered by Roger and stolen from him by Marcos's men. Then a jury in Hawaii awarded a record $22 billion to the American investors. Surprisingly, in a regional ruling, it was declared that the Golden Buddha in court's custody was only a bronze plate statue which directly contradicted the US court judgment, and nobody till date have a correct explanation on how the judgment was actually made. Roger's relatives claimed that the statue that was returned to his family was a replica and they never got hold of the original Golden Buddha. Now the theories about this treasure doesn't end with the Filipino dictator. Some of the prominent historians who argue about the existence of Yamashita's gold are Sterling Seagrave and his wife Peggy Seagrave, who wrote 2 books related to this subject: The Yamamoto Dynasty, The Secret History of Japan's Imperial Family, and Gold Warriors, America's Secret Recovery of Yamashita's Gold. The Seagraves and few others have claimed that American military intelligence operatives, including Edward Lansdale, a major general in United States Air Force, located much of the loot, and they colluded with Hirohito and other senior Japanese figures to conceal its existence, so that they could use it to finance American covert intelligence operations around the world during the Cold War. For the Americans, the loot was fair game, as Asian gold was largely unaccounted for in international finance, and it had a possibility of falling under communist control. Post-war, General Yamashita was captured and quickly tried for war crimes, which many claim to be unjust and unnecessary. The general appeared daily in front of international observers and news cameras, making it harder for the American to torture him for information about the secret sites. Allegedly, one of Yamashita's men broke down and revealed many details to American intelligence agencies. The officers followed the lead and were stunned by their finding. They immediately reported back to General MacArthur and then traveled to Washington to brief then US President Harry Truman. It was here that a pivotal decision was made. The loot had to remain a secret. Mobilizing such vast treasures would be a logistical nightmare, especially when many of the countries it was stolen from being under communist control. Also, revealing the existence of such huge sums of precious metal would cause the gold price to plummet, and currencies around the world pegged to gold would crash. Truman feared an economic bloodbath. A decision was made, and for the next few years, the Americans worked to recover hundreds of billions of dollars worth of treasure from the tunnels in the Philippines, after which it was deposited under utmost secrecy at US banks across the world. This helped US to fund covert operations around the world for decades to come. But all these are just rumors, stories and theories, as there aren't any physical documents that are in public to support any such claims. Also, many experts and Filipino historians say there is no credible evidence behind any of these claims. Nobody till date has officially found Yamashita's gold. Even its existence is questioned a lot. But one thing is for sure, that some of these Asian countries were stripped of their vast wealth during the war, and no one has ever come to a strong conclusion on where this wealth actually went. The mystery of this treasure deepens as Imelda Marcos herself claimed in 1992 that Yamashita's gold accounted for the bulk of the wealth of her husband, Filipino dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Believe it or not, these rumors have inspired many hopeful treasure hunters to continue their search for these secret sites. Due to this, a number of accidental deaths, injuries and financial losses have also been reported. Currently, the National Museum of the Philippines is responsible for issuing treasure hunting permits and licenses. So what do you think? Where is Yamashita's gold? Is it with the Filipino dictator's family, or is it inside the vaults of some American banks? Maybe it is still buried somewhere deep underneath Philippines. This is Stranger. Have a good night.